Welcome back to the California Conversation. I'm Tess Abraham. Would you believe that we would be at the point in our politics where a reality TV star would be running to lead one of the largest cities across the United States? Well, if that was going to happen anywhere, Los Angeles would be the place. And that is exactly where we are with the LA mayoral race. Now, LA is the poster child for all of California's worst issues. Pick an issue: homelessness, drugs, crime, any of it. And it is worst here in LA, which is why the 2026 midterm elections are so important, because they're not just important to save California as a state, they're also important to save her largest cities, Los Angeles included. And so on June 2nd, voters are going to decide at the polls what direction they want Los Angeles to head in. Mayor Bass is saying that we should stay the course, that her way is working, that incrementally over time, we're making change little by little. But then there's Spencer Pratt, who is a reality TV star and altogether an outsider, completely different angle than Mayor Bass. So where is that going to lead us, and what are voters going to ultimately decide? I am breaking it all down for you today. But before we get started, make sure to like this video, subscribe to this channel if you haven't already, and ring that notification bell so that you stay up to date on all things California politics. And this show would not be possible without our amazing brand partners, namely EveryLife. EveryLife is the only pro-life diaper company across America, and they're not only providing you with premium, non-toxic baby products and baby diapers, but they are also on a mission to change the narrative around pregnancy and show how wonderful and what a miracle it really is. And that's through their newest initiative, the Rethink Pregnancy campaign. And so if you want to support a company that stands for life, you should go check out their newest campaign. I will link it below. And additionally, you should check out their amazing products for yourself, for someone who you know is in need of diapers or other baby products in that amazing phase of life. And if you use my discount code TESSA10, you can get 10% off your first order. So, how exactly did we get here? How did we get to the place where we are having just people out of left field running to be mayor of LA? Before we understand Pratt's campaign and before we understand how he's doing with voters and where the race stands, we first need to understand the current state of Los Angeles and how we've gotten to this point. And I don't want to belabor this point because I'm sure that you know as well as I do, LA has a lot of problems. We talk about California's problems as a whole a lot on this show, and they specifically are concentrated in its largest cities. So it's no surprise that Los Angeles, being one of the largest cities across our country, is going to have a lot of those major issues. As I mentioned at the top of the show, homelessness. We have a big drug problem, which is leading to homelessness. There's rising and a rampant crime that goes around. It feels very unsafe to walk on the streets. There's insane cost of living. And so we know that these issues are real because we see them with our eyes, and it really doesn't take a lot of thinking in order to know that LA is a dumpster fire. If you visit here from another state, you can very clearly see the problems. If you live here, you live them every single day. But there are two key points that we need to understand in order to understand the state of LA and how we're getting to this point in the race. The first is that its condition is not accidental. I say this a lot, right? That these are the results of policies. It's the results of leadership. It's the results of decades of choices that have been made, not only by leadership and by the mayor or by anyone else who is in charge of LA, but also by the voters, by the people who have lived here. You have a say in your government and in your governance. And so who you vote for truly matters. And the policies that they enact are going to flow down to every aspect of your life. But with that, residents are starting to lose faith that their government leaders can actually make change in a lot of these high visibility issues. They wonder, can they actually clean up homelessness? Because they've been pledging to clean up homelessness for years at this point, and it has just not gotten better. Can they make me feel safe? Are they actually going to pursue policies that put criminals behind bars and that clean up our streets so that we can go out once again? Are they going to fix the problem that rents are upwards of $3,000 for a one-bedroom apartment in LA so that more and more people can afford to live here? And so the public is starting to understand that this condition is not accidental, but they are not truly believing that their government can fix it. And so we start to become complacent. We start to think, maybe it really can't change. Maybe it has to be this way. Maybe California, and LA specifically, just is a tough place to live in, and we take the pros with the cons. But the beautiful thing is that when there is an election, people are reminded that they have a choice. And so those who feel abandoned by their leaders, those who feel disillusioned by the promises that their leaders have made and have yet to deliver on and have actually made worse than delivering on, those people can realize that they have a choice to continue on the same path, to elect the incumbent mayor, to run once again their city, or to make a different choice entirely. And that is where Spencer Pratt enters the scene. Now, if you are like me, you may not follow reality TV. You may not keep up with all of the gossip in Hollywood. And so I did some research for you in case you don't know who Spencer Pratt is, or if you've never heard of him before he started his campaign for LA mayor. And according to some very important deep dive IMDb research, Spencer Pratt was one of the stars of a show called The Hills, which ran from 2006 to 2010, and it apparently followed the lives of some young adults who were in LA. And so Pratt was actually painted more as the villain of that story. He was married to one of the show's lead female stars, and so he was constantly in conflict with her and some of her friends and drove a wedge between her and one of her friends. It just all sounds like Hollywood drama and the kind of shows I, quite frankly, don't watch, but are probably very entertaining. And so now, 16 years later, that's what he's mostly known for. That's where he got his fame from. But since then, he has his own business. He is still married to his wife, who he was married to at the time of the show, and they have 2 sons, and they live in LA. Now, the biggest thing that has pushed Pratt into the mayoral race is that last year, him and his wife and their whole family lost their home. So they lived in the Pacific Palisades. When the Palisades fire swept through, it burned everything down, and they lost absolutely everything that they owned. And their home wasn't insured because they were dropped by insurance companies because of the mass exodus of insurance companies out of California and because of the fire risk presented in that area. Because of that, they truly lost everything and have had to start from scratch, which is just shocking. Plus, his family, his parents, also lived in the same area, and their home also burned down. I'm not sure if their home was insured, but basically, his family has been through a lot. They have lost a lot. And so that was a turning point for him because he started to look into the failures that led to him losing his entire home and his whole life and having to start from scratch. And as he did that, he started to uncover government incompetence. He started to see failures in leadership. He started to see areas where the mayor should have made better choices that she didn't, and areas where she's not taking accountability. And so he started to speak out against all of that. And so on the 1-year anniversary of losing his home in the Pacific Palisades fire, he spoke not too far from the location of his charred home, and he announced that he was running to be mayor of LA to actually make real change. And so listen to what he said. He said, quote, "I have realized that the city I love is being managed into the ground by people who don't have the courage to actually lead. Business as usual is a death sentence for Los Angeles, and I'm done waiting for someone to take real action. That is why I'm running for mayor, and let me be clear, this isn't just a campaign, this is a mission." That is incredible. That is someone who realizes that status quo, like he's saying, just doing business as usual, is not going to make things better. It's not going to address the problems. It's not going to prevent future emergencies and catastrophes like the fires. And if we don't learn from those things, if we don't learn from the decline that we have seen, then we deserve every single bit of it. It is time to actually have a leader who will lead and who will make change. But I am getting off topic here. We need to continue with Pratt's campaign. So his message has really resonated with the residents of LA. And I think that it has done that because he's taken a few different strategies that have really spoken to people in a different way than the usual politicians have sort of taken. And so the first thing is he has incredible campaign ads. I don't know if you've seen them. If you go on X, they're just all over the place. They are hysterical because they're generated by AI. And so they can be really elaborate and he can kind of do whatever he wants with them. But he has mainly portrayed our government leaders as people who are very far removed from their constituents and himself as a normal guy who wants to come in to save the city. And so just watch this one where he actually portrays himself as Batman. This is probably my favorite one. It's incredible. Just watch this.
Please, I'm begging you. There's homeless drug addicts in front of the schools. My children aren't safe.
Let's move the drug addicts closer.
Bass already solved crime. I endorse her.
Next! This is a machine. If we want to burn this town to the ground, who threw that?
I feel so close.
You can do it, Spencer!
When I first saw that, I was just so entertained for one, but for two, it's so endearing because it's so true that I think for a lot of us, not just conservatives, but anyone who is living in California, it is very clear that leaders like Gavin Newsom, or in LA, leaders like Karen Bass, are just completely out of touch. They seem to sit on high upon their riches in their mansions, doing whatever, untouched by their policies, and they continue on the path even when the path isn't working. And so that is what this ad campaign is really getting at, is these people don't actually care about you. You think Gavin Newsom thinks about you and your situation? Absolutely not. He thinks about his power. He thinks about how now he wants to run to be president, to destroy our entire country. And Karen Bass similarly is thinking about, how can I just maintain power? She's not willing to change the status quo. She's not willing to break from the party to say that the policies I've enacted have made things worse. She's just going to continue saying the same lines over and over again. And then when she campaigns, she's going to say it's really important that we keep doing the work that we're doing, without acknowledging that you might have lost your home in a fire. You might know people who lost their homes in a fire as a direct result of her policies. Or you might be being driven out of your beloved city, of your home, if LA is your home, because of her policies. And so that here is what Spencer Pratt is getting at. And then he has another ad campaign where he is showing what LA could be like under his leadership. And this is where he introduces the idea of Pratt Summer. Just watch.
We're even allowed to arrest criminals now, with handcuffs and everything.
I only see needles in the hospital now. Who knew it could be this way?
I love going to the park now that it's not an open drug market.
Okay, who here is willing to admit that common sense actually turned out to be good?
I feel safe walking her. She's definitely having a Pratt summer.
Who's having a Pratt summer?
Also so highly entertaining, but at the same time, just showing you what life could be like. Do you ever wonder that? Like, oh, could I walk down the street and not worry about if there's going to be a person lying on the sidewalk or if there's going to be human feces that is lining the roads? Because yes, I have seen both of those things happening, even in the part of LA County where I live. And that's not even the city of Los Angeles. And so he's showing those are results of leadership. And he's promising, I want to make change here. And it's so hysterical because he's playing off of the idea of Brat Summer that Kamala Harris campaigned on back in 2024. And in case you're not part of Gen Z and you don't know what that means, Brat was coined by, I believe it was Charlie XCX, a singer. And that's what Kamala really ran on, is that the celebrities were like, oh, she's so brat. And they were just saying, basically, she's so cool. She's so like us. She's so Gen Z. She's this party girl. She's so fun. And that's what they wanted you to vote off of. They wanted you to vote off of vibes, even though her policies were absolutely terrible and would not have made the country any better. But now Spencer Pratt is taking that and completely showing you could have it both. You can have great policies, and that is going to produce a happy, a vibrant, a youthful, and alive Los Angeles. Because right now, there are a lot of people who don't want to go to Los Angeles. I personally do not like going into Los Angeles. It is anxiety-inducing because, quite frankly, it's disgusting. And so the idea of having a Pratt summer where we actually look forward to going to LA and where it's clean and where it's fun sounds incredible. So I think this really resonates with especially young voters. And so the real question is this working? Is his campaigning actually pushing him forward in the polls? And it's a little little tricky because it isn't a race for governor, so you don't get polls every single day. The most recent poll that I saw was from April, and Pratt was sitting around 11%. Karen Bass was at 25%. Now, it's important to understand that in LA's mayoral race, if a candidate on June 2nd won 51% of the votes, if someone pushed past the majority, then they wouldn't have to go to the November election. So, for example, if Karen Bass won by over 50% in June, there would no longer be a race for mayor in November. She would just be elected as mayor. But if no candidate makes it past that majority mark, then we'd have a runoff into November. And so Spencer Pratt is trying to say that he's going to win. He's going to win with 51% of the votes. And it's a little hard to believe when you see the polls and see, well, you were at 11%. But a lot has changed since April. I know it hasn't even been that long. It hasn't even been an entire month yet. A lot has been evolving. And so it's starting to look like he might be on an upward trajectory to gain more votes than that initial poll was showing. So what has he been doing? Well, first of all, he was on the Joe Rogan Experience and Rogan endorsed him. So that's great because Rogan has a huge reach. And so he can reach people across both sides of the aisle and potentially that younger demographic as well, who thinks that Rogan's really cool and likes to tune in. So that was huge. But the biggest thing was the May 6th mayoral debate. And I would say that this was a really huge turning point in Spencer Pratt's campaign that is giving a lot of hope that he might actually win this thing. The main thing about Pratt that is appealing is the way that he speaks, because he is honest. He just says what he's thinking, and what he's thinking is true. And so there's no spin. We see this with political people all of the time. They stand up there and they have to think through, how am I going to spin this? How am I going to explain the decline? How am I going to puff up what I have done? And how am I going to skirt the question? But Pratt doesn't have any incentive to do that because he's not a politician. And he's only getting into this because he wants to save the city that he lives in, not because he has higher political ambitions like someone like Karen Bass does have. Politics is not his career. He's not trying to make a career out of it. And so it doesn't benefit him to just get up there and spin anything. He wants to get up there and he wants to speak truth. He wants to speak his lived experience. He wants to speak what he has seen around our city and give his own ideas for how he would fix it. And so we saw this come out a few different times in the comments that he made during the debate. And so the first example that really went viral centered around homelessness. And that's because Bass and Rahman, who is the other main candidate in the race, she is further left of Bass. So she is more progressive. She's on the socialist side, which is just fantastic. That's what LA needs. But anyway, both of them answered the homelessness question with much of the same policies that have been in place. We need affordable housing. We need to get these people off the streets into housing that we're going to build and use taxpayer money for. They need help. They need shelter. And so that's how we're going to address it. But Pratt was brutally honest about why that hasn't worked and what needs to be different. Just take a listen.
First off, inside safe, I like to say inside safe makes all of us outside unsafe. The reality is no matter how many beds you give these people, they are on super meth. They are on fentanyl. The DEA statistic says 93% of this is a drug addiction problem. Nithya, Councilwoman Robbins' plan for treatment first, I will go below the Harbor Freeway tomorrow with her, and we can find some of these people she's going to offer treatment for. She's going to get stabbed in the neck. These people do not want a bed. They want fentanyl or super meth. These ideas cost us over $400 million to house for 70, what did you say? 3,000 people for $400 million? This is absolute failure for both of them.
That's insane. Have you ever heard a politician speak like that or say that? And it's precisely here where we see that Pratt says what politicians are too afraid to say out of the fear that they're going to sound discompassionate or that they are going to turn off voters. It's a hard thing to acknowledge that most of the homeless population is struggling because of some sort of drug addiction that has led to severe mental incompetence or mental decline. And yet we have to reckon that with that reality, because if you only see the homeless population as people who are just in poverty and need help, and if they were handed a meal and given a home that they would thrive, you are completely ignorant of what the truth is. And so if you just walk up to a homeless person on the street, they might be violent, they might hurt you because they're most likely not in their right mind or they are hopped up on some sort of drug. We need a leader who knows that. We need a leader who sees that, because then he can actually take steps to address the root cause of the issue. But he didn't stop there. It wasn't just on policy where he made the other two candidates look wildly incompetent, but he also called out the lies that have been spun by Karen Bass specifically around the Palisades fire. So watch this clip of him doing just that.
He's saying several things that are completely inaccurate. First of all, there was one reservoir that was out of commission. He is correct. 1 million years ago, it was for wildfires, but over the last 30, 40 years, it's been for drinking water. He talked about the winds. That is just completely inaccurate. If that were accurate, then the planes would have been able to fly. And so the winds reached close to 100 miles an hour, and the planes were unable to fly.
So she's an incredible liar. Everyone on their phones, Google it. 40 weather stations in the Pacific Palisades. It never went above 40 miles per hour. She is referencing the Altadena fire.
I have to interrupt you. No name calling,
She just
please.
lied, though.
Yeah, but no name calling.
She called me a liar.
I don't believe she did.
She said
I did not hear
making
that.
this up.
I did not.
We're not going to debate the issue.
Nicely done. That was insane. I love how the moderators are like, let's not do any name calling. Let's not name call around here. And he's just like, she was lying. It's not name calling. It's just true. And that's true. We should be able to call a lie a lie. We should be able to say that you are doing that and you're doing it knowingly. And so once again, we see here that Pratt is just trying to say what is true. Why hide from those realities? Well, for Karen Bass, she wants to hide from them because she doesn't want to lose her job, but it would benefit her to own those mistakes and then give a clear path for how she's going to fix them. Just by denying them and then being able to be fact-checked by telling people to take out their phones and Google something, not a great look for you, KB. Not a great look. And so his performance really spoke for itself because even though before this debate, the polls were around 11% for him, after this debate, those who watched it and were polled about it, 90% of people said that Pratt won the debate. That's insane. That's insane. There were 3 people up there, so you would think just mathematically that he wouldn't be able to achieve 90% because people would be split between who they like the most as a candidate. And yet people are recognizing he won this debate because he told the truth, because he didn't have to have talking points, because he didn't have to spin a narrative. He just had to talk about the issues that we're facing, and then he just had to call out the lies of the other side. And so some of the feedback that was given, one person said, quote, Pratt was surprisingly good. I thought he would be unserious, but his grief is actually real. Bass and Rahman seemed far less serious about improving quality of life in LA. And that's so true. He's exposing, he actually cares about this stuff. He wants it to be better, not just he wants to be in power like the other two up on the stage. Additionally, someone said, quote, Spencer Pratt held his composure. Bass couldn't articulate how she would do anything differently, and Rahman seemed flustered by the questions. And so just by him being able to stand up there and answer a question because he knows what needs to be done to help Los Angeles is a very good look and has persuaded a large chunk of the undecided voters that they should vote for him. And so as Pratt continues showing up in media interviews or on social media or just continuing his campaign up until that June 2nd deadline, he's going to continue building upon this momentum. But that brings us to a much bigger and most important question, which is, can Spencer Pratt actually save LA? Can he actually make the kind of change that is needed to make this city livable once again? And this is where we highlight, as I've been saying over this whole episode, that Spencer Pratt's strength lies in his honesty. People do not like their leaders telling them that the problems that they are living firsthand and that they are experiencing are not real. People don't like hearing Gavin Newsom or hearing Karen Bass say, we've reduced homelessness. We are fixing that problem. We have reduced cost of living. It's all on the Trump administration. We have done X, Y, and Z. And then you walk out and you see that those things aren't true, or you pay your bills and you see that those things aren't true. That is incredibly frustrating. And so Spencer Pratt is uniquely positioned not just to speak to the pain of people who live in his same city, but also to introduce new and fresh ideas that could actually address solving those problems. This is in huge contrast to Karen Bass. If Karen Bass was still in power, if she is elected as mayor once again, she will not make any sort of change. And she has promised that even in her own attack ads against Spencer Pratt. In case you missed it, she put out an ad, or one of the unions that are supporting her put out an ad that literally say that Los Angeles needs to stay the course. I'm not even kidding. Who thought that was a good idea? Who thought that was the slogan you should go with of Los Angeles is on the right track, we should stay the course? Woo, that person should be fired. But anyway, let's just look at this ad because it's actually too good not to mention.
Republican Spencer Pratt is the last thing Los Angeles needs for mayor. Pratt opposes using taxpayer money to build brand new houses for our unhoused neighbors, saying it's time for the homeless to get help or get out. Pratt thinks LA needs thousands more police officers rather than more social workers, and Republican Spencer Pratt thinks public employee unions should have less power, not more. LA is on the right track and needs to stay the course. Vote no on Republican Spencer Pratt.
How in the world that's an attack ad against Spencer Pratt, I have no idea. And so many of people online are saying that if this might actually win him the election, because this is a promise that Karen Bass isn't going to do anything different. And the things that they're promising Spencer Pratt are going to do sound actually pretty good. But again, this is because Karen Bass thinks it's working. It's fine. We can just keep going the way that we're going. And voters don't like that. People don't like that. You and I shouldn't like that, because when there's decline all around us, we should demand change. And so that is where I think Pratt could be a very effective leader. He could come in as mayor. He would be blunt about the issues that are facing Los Angeles. He'd be realistic about the types of solutions that need to be implemented in order to actually change things. And he's not afraid to be politically incorrect. And that's very important, because when you have leaders who are more worried about their image, who are more worried about their power, who are more worried about trying to get more and more support behind them, they're not willing to do what needs to be done, because sometimes a good leader has to be unpopular. Spencer Pratt doesn't really seem to care about that. He wants to bridge the divide and say, if you want things to get better, I'm the one who will get those things done. And I mean, it's just wild that someone being willing to say that homelessness is a result of drugs and that we should keep water in the reservoirs in case of fires or emergency, that's so revolutionary. Who would think that that would be revolutionary? And yet here we are with this wild out of left field campaign that really just centers around restoring common sense. But we know that that's to be true, because someone who will engage with reality is far more equipped to lead than someone who is so captured by ideology that they're not willing to break with their ideology even when it is hurting people. So June 2nd will be very telling to see if voters will actually vote in a way that shows that they are tired, because I do believe that they are tired. I do believe that people are tired of hearing their leaders brush away their issues. They're tired of the same issues being perpetuated, and they're tired of the message that says things are totally fine when they clearly are not. And so it's time for Angelinos to show up and actually vote like it. It's time to vote to enact change. And it really will come down to if people think that LA is worth saving at all, if they think that trying to enact a different form of leadership is actually worth a shot to restore their own city. But LA is one of the most beautiful, one of the most culturally vibrant, one of the most important cities in our country. And so we cannot just give up on it. We cannot continue rewarding its bad leadership. We instead have to enact better leadership who says that they're going to come in and make massive change. And then we hold them accountable. If Pratt was elected, we would continue to hold him accountable to his word. And we keep doing that until we get good leaders who are actually making changes for the better for the people around them. Remember that cities do not decline overnight. It is a result of policy. It is a result of leadership. And when they are declining, we have to try a different approach. But then remember that cities also don't rebuild overnight. It's going to take time. It's going to take policy changes. And so we must elect leaders who are going to start that process so that we can start seeing better results. Los Angeles does not have to continue down the current path that it is on. But if we are going to restore it, then voters have to have the courage to vote for an entirely different candidate. So please, if you are in LA, make a plan to vote. Vote for Pratt, and let's have ourselves a Pratt summer. Thank you so much for joining me here today. I hope it was helpful for you as you navigate life in our state, and that you have stayed up to date on the different races that are coming up in June. If you loved this show, please spread the word and share it with your friends, family, and fellow Californians. And I'll see you back here next week for another episode of the California Conversation.